Welcome to The Explainer. Here, we break down really complex topics by going straight to the source material.
I know, it sounds like the beginning of a weird joke, right? But the answer actually gets to the heart of this huge shift that's happening all over the globe. So in this explainer, we're going to connect a very real and powerful new alliance in Africa with a speculative, high-stakes conflict to really get our heads around this great realignment. Okay, let's dive in.
So for the last, 30 years or so, the world has operated under this relatively stable, kind of Western-led order. But that's changing fast. New powers are rising, old alliances are starting to crack, and a new, much more unpredictable, multipolar world is taking shape. And all that multipolar means is that instead of just one or two dominant players calling the shots, we're seeing multiple centers of power pop up. And today, we're going to look at a really powerful example of this transformation in action.
Okay, so our story starts in West Africa, in a region called the Sahel. This is where three nations have joined forces to create a new confederation. And believe me, it's completely redrawing the political and security map over there.
Wow. What's really striking here is just the sheer scale of what we're talking about. I mean, just look at that landmass. It is enormous. It's actually bigger than the entire ECOWAS bloc that it just left behind. And when you combine the population, you're looking at over 70 million people. So this is not some minor regional shuffle. This is the birth of a seriously significant new geopolitical player.
So what exactly is this Alliance of Sahel States, or AES? Well, it started out as a mutual defense pact back in 2023. But by July of 2024, it had evolved into a full-blown confederation. And their goals are, well, they're ambitious. We're talking a common market, a shared currency, joint military forces, and really deep integration of their infrastructure. The whole shebang.
But look, this didn't just happen out of nowhere. The creation of the AES was the result of a really rapid, really dramatic series of political upheavals. So the path to creating the AES was incredibly fast, and it was really forged in this crucible of change. It all started with a series of military coups that kicked out the old pro-Western governments. Then you had the regional bloc ECOWAS, that's the long-standing economic community of West African states. They threatened to step in with military force. In response, these three nations immediately banded together for mutual defense. And from there, it just escalated fast. First, they demanded that French and U.S. forces get out. And then came the final step, a formal split from ECOWAS itself, a total, definitive break with the old order.
And this is the crucial point, right here. This is a deliberate, strategic rejection of the old way of doing things. They're actively pushing back against what they call neo-colonialism, and they're going for total sovereignty. We're talking military, political, and economic. They're basically breaking the chains of their old relationships to carve out a new, self-reliant path. But they're not doing it alone.
You know that saying, nature abhors a vacuum? Well, so does geopolitics. As soon as those long-standing Western partners were out, the AES moved quickly to find new allies to fill that space and help them achieve their goals.
And this slide just captures the whole realignment perfectly. Look, on one side, you've got the former partners heading for the exit, France, the United States, the ECOWAS bloc. And on the other side, a whole new set of players arriving on the scene. You've got Russia helping out with military support, Turkey is deepening security and trade ties, and then you have Iran and China coming in to forge new economic deals. It is, a textbook geopolitical pivot.
So everything we've talked about so far in the Sahel, that's real. It's happening right now. And it's a super powerful example of a bloc of nations asserting their sovereignty and just choosing new partners. But it raises a big question. What happens when these realignments start to create friction between the major global powers? Well, to understand just how high the stakes can get, we're going to pivot ourselves and turn to a fictional scenario that explores exactly that.
Okay, so this next section uses a fictional story to show just how fast simmering geopolitical tensions can, boil over into a massive, world-altering crisis. All right, just want to be perfectly clear here. What you're about to see is totally fictional. It's drawn from a creative thought experiment. We're using it purely to illustrate the kinds of dynamics and the potential consequences you could see in a rapid geopolitical escalation. So, this scenario, it opens with a bang. Literally, a sudden dramatic announcement from the White House declaring the start of major combat operations in Iran. No warning, no buildup, just boom. Immediate declared conflict. And in this fictional story, the goal isn't just military, it's explicitly political. The call is for the Iranian people themselves to take over your government. I mean, that's a direct appeal for regime change, plain and simple. And Tehran's response? It's immediate, it's defiant, and it is completely unambiguous. There's no talk of negotiation, no attempt to de-escalate, just a promise of a powerful retaliation. The stage is set for a much wider war.
And the conflict just spirals with terrifying speed. In this fictional account, we see initial strikes on Iranian leadership, and that's followed by immediate Iranian counterstrikes on U.S. bases all across the Gulf. We're talking within hours. The entire region goes into lockdown, airspaces are closed, and the rest of the world is just scrambling to figure out what's happening.
And then, amidst all that strategic chaos, there's the devastating human cost. This number, 108. That's the reported death toll in the fictional story after a strike hits a girls' elementary school in Iran. It's just a stark, tragic reminder of the human reality of any conflict, real or imagined.
So, a fictional scenario like this really forces you to ask a critical question, doesn't it? In a world where all the old rules and alliances are breaking down, just how fragile is the peace? How quickly can one regional flashpoint turn into a global catastrophe? Okay, so let's connect these two threads. We've got the real-world realignment happening in the Sahel, and we've got this fictional escalation in the Middle East. What do we actually learn when we put these two stories side by side? And here's the key takeaway. The exact same underlying forces are at play in both of these stories. That rejection of the old order, the search for new partners, that powerful assertion of sovereignty, those are the very real forces driving the creation of the AES in Africa right now. And it's those same forces that make a fictional scenario, like a war between major powers, feel so plausible and, frankly, so deeply concerning.
And that really leaves us with the central question of our time, doesn't it? As this great realignment keeps going, as new blocs form and old powers get challenged, can we navigate this massive transition without stumbling into new and devastating conflicts? That is the critical question to keep in your mind as you watch these global shifts continue to play out.